And I think you can hear us now.
Can you hear us now?
Sweet, you can. The green bar is moving, it's exciting. We can do this. Hope everyone's doing well. Ooh, whoops. I just pressed the wrong button, I think. Let me open up. Is it in Chrome or Safari? There it is.
There we go.
Cool. All right, so before we get going, apologies for the quick technical difficulties. My name is Joe. This is Amanda. We're going to introduce ourselves really quickly, and then we're going to talk today about how to ace the coding bootcamp admissions process. We're going to start, to be honest, just generally, whether you attend us or someone else, we want to be helpful, and then kind of finish off with specifics around applying to us to Flatiron School. So before we get going, here's Amanda.
Quick introduction. So hi, I'm Amanda. I am the Senior Manager for Admissions here at Flatiron School. Been here for just over 2 years. I primarily run admissions for our in-person program, but I also work very closely with our online program, so I can answer questions related to both. As you can see on my intro slide, I am from New York, born and raised, very excited. Did grad school at NYU. One of my favorite places in the city is the Museum of Natural History. I love going up there whenever I can. Big into games of all stripes, role-playing, board, and video. And those are my cats because they're adorable. They make people happy.
And my name is Joe. I am VP of Education here at the school. Before joining Flatiron School, I worked as a consultant for IBM, traveling around. So I love traveling as much as possible. To that extent, when I do travel, I have been trying to get a private pilot's license for a while now. It takes a long time, and every time you pause, you forget a lot. In addition to that, I like biking. I like to work on those bikes and listen to podcasts as much as possible. And I created our iOS program and ran it for a bunch of years here at the school, as well as I created the original iOS program at where I went to university, Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. Finally, I read a lot. I generally like to just consume information. I think it's why the internet's amazing. So let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about, first of all, what kind of being a student is like at a boot camp of some sort. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the admissions process. We're going to talk both about ours and in general what other admissions processes look like. From there, we're going to go into how to stand out. How do boot camps figure out, yes, this person's great, this person may need more time, stuff like that. Finally, how to know when you're ready to apply. How have you done enough that you're sure this is for you and you want to apply? And then last, we'll do some Q&A. So let's get going.
Let's do it. So first, let's just set some expectations. You're thinking about applying to a boot camp. You're thinking about going through this whole process. What's it actually like being a boot camp student? How do you know that this is right for you? So here's just a quick list of some things that bootcamp success requires. One is this is hard. This is a lot of work. Our program is about 800 to 1,000 hours of commitment just to get through the curriculum, learn the basics, and get ready to graduate and get a job. So in order to put in that kind of time, first of all, you've got to be passionate. This has got to be something that you're excited about. And not just technology in general, but the actual act of writing code. For a lot of people who are considering a boot camp, this is a new skill. So that willingness to be new at something again and to give of your time to become good at it is really, really important. This is a learning process that is going to require a lot of long days, a lot of, you're going to be asking a lot of yourself and your classmates, whether you study online or in person. So being willing to both stretch yourself and support others is a really important, both of those are really important pillars of success at a boot camp. And of course, to have all of that, you must be motivated in and of yourself, right? You've got to want this for yourself and be excited to come into school or fire up your computer and code every single day. So a couple of things specific to attending a boot camp online, such as our full-stack web developer program online. An online program is going to require a good deal of self-motivation, right? Because you're not going to have a teacher standing over you. You're not going to have classmates next to you to sort of elbow you and make sure you're making progress. You've got to be able to do it yourself. So there's a lot of self-motivation involved. The nice thing about it is you can counterbalance that with having a life outside of doing the boot camp. right? Ours is very, very flexible. So you can work full-time or part-time while you are studying with us, sort of balance it within and around the other parts of your life, as long as you understand that you're going to get out what you put in, right? Our students who are putting in 30 hours a week are going to graduate faster than those who are putting in 15, right? It's just math. So like making sure that you know your pace and your study style and that you get out what you put in is a really important prerequisite to understanding online studying in general, studying anything online.
Yeah.
Do you want to take in person?
Yeah, sure, I'll take in person. So the key to studying in person is effectively you need to be able to commit your life to being a student for 15 weeks. That means every single day you're here 9 to 6 at 100%, at 110%. It is not, it's really important that you're ready to commit. So with that, you're willing to work together with others. You know, we do a ton of pairing, a lot of collaboration as much as possible, trying to mimic a real-world collaborative engineering environment. And then, of course, because we compress so much material into 15 weeks, you need to be able to keep up at an extremely fast pace of learning, willing to put the extra hours in when topics are hard, and go deeper when topics are easy. So if you're looking to learn online, remember, you want to be you're going to be self-paced, you've got to be motivated. You have to get yourself to the computer every single day to get the work done, or every other day, or whatever your schedule allows. Instructors are available all day, which is awesome. They're available from I think it's 7 a.m. to midnight. They're going to help you virtually. It's a great experience, and you get that time. If you're a morning person, you want to work from 7 to noon, you can do that, which really gets into the flexibility, right? You allow you to have your learning fit your life, instead of having to put kind of a pause on life. For in-person, remember, it's 15 weeks full-time. This is 12, but it's 15. Full-time, very, very full-time. It's, you know, not the time to plan vacations. You're working really hard. You'll be 100% available, ready to collaborate. But the in-person won't kind of shape around your existing life. You have to be able to move fast and keep up. So Amanda runs our admissions team here at the school. What is an admissions process look like?
All right, fantastic. So this is sort of bootcamp agnostic, right? Like this is what you can expect from most bootcamps out there from their admissions process. First step is your written application. So you can find ours just by clicking on start your application now on the website. Written application is usually a couple short essays, a little bit of sharing your experiences with the admissions team. We'll get into how to write a solid written application in a couple slides. If your written application is selected to move forward, you'll be invited to an admissions interview. For us, that is a non-technical interview. So that is with me or someone on my team. And that interview is really about, it's a mutual sort of getting to know you session. We'll ask you questions about your goals and your motivations, and you'll get a chance to ask us questions as well, and really get a sense of whether Flatiron or whatever bootcamp you're talking to is right for you. Should that go well, you'll be sent a technical assessment. And as you'll see, across the bootcamp industry, there's a number of different kinds of technical assessments you might be asked to do. At Flatiron, we send you some code to do in advance. You can think of it as a homework, if you will, or a coding challenge that you do in advance. And then you will set up a second interview, this time with one of our instructors, who will review the code that you prepared in advance, ask you to explain it, probably ask you to expand on it a little bit. Once you've done that, we're generally able to make an admissions decision pretty quickly at that point. So the 4 big steps, the 4 big pieces of your admissions package, if you will, are your written application, your first round non-technical interview, your coding challenge, your technical assessment, and your technical interview. So let's talk about that written application. This is the first thing that the admissions team sees from you at all. We don't know who you are until we get this written application, and this sets off the entire process for us. You would be surprised how many of these I get that are 1 sentence long. That is not a great way to get our attention, right? So when I am advising people how to write a great written application, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. One is be professional. Treat this almost like you would a job application, if you will. Tell us what you've done, tell us where you've been, where you're going, and how learning to code fits in with your sort of professional journey so far. Help us understand how Flatiron School fits into your goals in your life. Also, be interesting. My colleague Michael says, be charming. We get a lot of applications. We get, for any given start date for the in-person program, north of 250 applications. And of those, we are sifting through to find the people who are going to be good fit for the class, who are going to be interesting classmates, who bring an interesting story to Flatiron School. So the more you can tell us about the kooky things that you're interested in, or your hobbies and your other skills outside of code, the more we're like, all right, this is a different kind of person. We want to have this person in the class. But last and most importantly, really, communicate your passion to us, both about code and about the specific school that you're applying to, in our case, Flatiron. As we've been saying all along, right, this is a hard thing that you're going to do. The thing that is going to get you through those long hours, those 1,000+ hours, or those 15 weeks, is getting up every day and being excited about what you're going to do all day. And the more you can show us how excited and passionate you are, not just about technology in general or learning in general, but specifically about why is coding the right next step for you, the more successful your written application is likely to be.
Any tips on how to actually express, to show that you're passionate,
Sure.
to tell that you're passionate?
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll look different for everybody. Some of our students have been sort of playing around in code for years, right? Like since they were in high school, and they write in their application, I took AP Comp Sci in high school. I never really thought anything of it, but I made this really cool project, and I always wanted to get back into it, and now I finally can. Like, that's really great. If you started more recently, a helpful story to tell us is what got you started in the first place, right? There's a million things you could have picked up to do on the side. Why code, and why do you stick with it? A lot of students will say, I started writing a website because I'm a photographer and I wanted to have my own website. And I just got so into the HTML and the JavaScript and really wanted to get my fingers there, and I realized this is something that I'm excited about. Even if you came to that realization last week, you can tell us that story of what made me decide that of all the things I could spend my time on, this is the thing I am most excited to do. Make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
So the admissions interview, how does that go?
Yeah, so the first, I'm specifically talking about the first round non-technical interview. So different schools will do that different ways. We do it as a video call, so that's over Skype or Google Hangouts. One thing I always tell people to do is make sure your logistics are working. If you haven't used Skype in a while, and many of our students haven't, check your Skype account, make sure it's active, make sure you have a good connection. You do not want to lose your first 5 minutes of this interview to fiddling with the technology. I use Skype every day. Sometimes it works brilliantly, sometimes not so much. So good idea to log in a couple minutes early, make sure everything's working. But once you've got that done, from your end as a student, a couple helpful things to do is, first of all, do some research on the school so that you know what to expect, what we're likely to chat about. Obviously, you're here in this webinar, so you're already getting that done. And so what we're looking for is that you've sort of done that research, you know what you're getting into, you are expressing that passion to us, and that you come across as someone who will be a great fellow student and a great colleague in the classes that we put together. Particularly for the in-person program, we only admit about 20 or so students to each class. So we're looking for people who are going to be not just super passionate, but also super collaborative, super excited to be here. For the online program, we're looking for that self-motivation. We're looking for, you've thought this through, and you've planned for your studies, and you know that this is going to be a day-to-day commitment for a pretty long period of time. And it's always good to come prepared with questions. This will be one of the first opportunities you'll have to talk to an employee at the school. And they are, your first stop for anything that you might be wondering about the school itself, about the curriculum, about finances, anything at all.
Great. So once you finish kind of the admissions cultural interview, you'll get moved on, usually to some sort of homework and then eventually a technical interview. In that technical interview, people do different things. Some people do live coding sessions, some folks do brain teasers, some folks just give homework. At Flatiron, we give homework and a live coding session, right? And when you're in that technical interview, a lot of the stuff that Amanda was talking about applies here. Be prepared. Find a quiet spot. Make sure your logistics are fine. Make sure your text editor is ready. Turn off notifications. It's always embarrassing to have a text from your mom come in while you're in the middle of a very hard interview. Kind of gets your brain out of it all. And then when your interviewer asks you, hey, so how does this work? Explain your code in English. Don't just read the code. Don't just say, if C is less than 2 times B minus 1, then trigger click. I can read your code. What you should say is, oh, we trigger a click action when C is less than 2 minus B, or 2 times B minus 1. Use English, don't just read the code. And then while you are speaking English, remember, the more you explain your thought process, the more wrong you can be. Because by explaining your thought process, even if you get the answer wrong, I can see, oh, okay, they connected A to B to C. They're logical, they get it, they can break problems down. But if you just say, okay, and you're silent and just type away for a few minutes and all that, and you get it wrong, I have no idea what was in your head. So the only knowledge I have is, did you get the answer right or wrong? So explain your thought process, talk out loud as much as possible.
I assume it's like showing your work on a math test, right?
Exactly.
You can give tons of partial credit, even if x equals 4 is not the right answer.
Exactly, exactly. And then, all an effort of that, slow down. You don't need to talk all the time. It's okay if there's some silence. Whenever a question's asked, feel free to be like, okay, so, and then continue on. And remember, when you're stuck, this is the solution I find helps almost everyone. First, take a breath. You may not have breathed recently. Then, think about it. Then state what you know, right? Repeat back, okay, I know B is equal to 5, and then 5 times 2 is 10, minus 1 is 9. State what you know. By explaining what you know, there may be holes in your knowledge and holes in what you've done. And either the interviewer may actually just correct you, or you may correct yourself by realizing the hole in your logic. And then finally, don't make assumptions. Don't be like, oh, okay, B is always going to be 5. How do you know that? Be sure. Check your assumptions. All of those interviews are never easy, but it should make your technical interview go a bit more straightforward. So you've now been primed kind of on generally how the technical interviews, the cultural interviews, those kind of stuff work. Let's talk specifically about Flatiron School. What specifically does Flatiron School look for in applicants? And I'll let Amanda kind of take this.
Cool. So our admissions process, the Flatiron School admissions process, is designed to essentially sort out 3 things, right? Many of which we've been sort of talking about over these past couple of minutes, right? We're looking for culture, passion, and aptitude. So I'll spend a couple of minutes defining what all of those mean. But first I also want to call out what we don't look for, which is tons and tons and tons and tons of CS experience, right? While we do very occasionally get someone in who has tons of experience and is looking to skill up, the vast majority of our students started coding 6 months or less ago. Right, and they're with us at Flatiron School because they are super passionate about it, because they are a great culture fit, and they are great colleagues, and because they have the aptitude to be good at code. They don't need to prove to us that they are already good at code. That's not the thing we're looking for. So let's go deeper on some of these. So culture. So one thing that we really value here at Flatiron School is a diverse set of perspectives in both the online and the in-person program. And that means diversity on many different things, right? Any given class of 20 is going to have people of 20 very different backgrounds. We'll have someone who's an ex-lawyer, we'll have someone who's a photographer, we'll have someone who, we actually just graduated someone from the online program who was running a farm for a while before he came to Flatiron, which is one of my personal favorite stories. And when you have that happen, when you have a photographer, a lawyer, and a former farmer working on an app together, you get a better and more interesting output than you would if you had 4 lawyers or 4 farmers working on a project, right? Like, you're able to bring in many different kinds of perspectives. So our culture is sort of best exemplified in our school values, which are make no little plans, build for the whole world, build for scale. Don't just make things a little better, make them a lot better. Pursue mastery. Obviously, as a bootcamp student, you'll be pursuing mastery of code. Be scrappy, which I think is a really important one. If something's not working, don't give up. Cobble something together and make it work. Sort of the duct tape and glue, way of going through life. Work together. Be collaborative. That is incredibly important in both the online and the in-person program, that you are not just here to learn for yourself, but here to work with others and learn how to best work with others. And lastly, radiate positivity. You know, we know there will be tough days when you're teaching yourself, when you're working through our program online or in person. But the people who are going to be the most successful are the ones who can pick themselves up and say, you know what, I've gotten through hard stuff before, I can do it again, and I'm going to help my classmates do it too. So those are things we look for throughout the admissions process, in the written application, certainly in the cultural interview, and even, you know, as Joe was saying, in the tech interview.
Definitely.
So one note about culture that I don't think everybody always thinks about is that being a cultural fit to the school you're applying for is part of the process, and the schools are different. So I just gave you a sense of like what Flatiron values and what we're looking for. I'm sure the other schools out there will have their own culture. So research the schools, visit them, get to know what they're sort of all about, talk to alums, talk to current students. What's it like to spend a day at the school? Because you will not be able to mold yourself to a school's culture. You've got to find the school that fits you best. And that's where doing the research comes in. That's where asking lots of questions come in and engaging with the school. Because you will be more successful in the process if you target the process at schools that will resonate best with you. So a couple things I just mentioned, right? Ways to find out about a school's culture. Come visit. We constantly, at Flatiron at least, has, you know, multiple in-person events a week, and you know, online events as well, so you can engage with actual staff members, engage with instructors. Maybe most importantly is engage with current students, right? You know, if you're here in New York and you can come by campus, you'll be able to talk to people who spend all day here and are current students and can give you an even better sense of the school's culture than Jill and I can. Make sure you do the research and look beyond code, which means, you know, you're going to be spending, if you do an in-person program, 10 to 11 hours a day on campus with the people that you're there with. You've got to make sure that the people at the school are people you resonate with, or people you can communicate with. It's all the stuff around the code that will make or break your experience in a lot of cases. Awesome. So let's quickly talk about passion. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but how to demonstrate passion. You know, start coding is the most important thing. You'd be surprised how many students send in a written application to Flatiron School and, you know, okay, how long have you been coding? Well, I haven't started. Well, I don't know if you're, not only do I not know that you're passionate about code, you don't know if you're passionate about code. You've got to spend some time actually writing some lines of code and determining what it is you like about that actual action. Like I just said, you know, in a program like this, you're going to be spending hours a day doing just that, writing lines of code. Make sure you enjoy it before you even start. Ask lots of questions and stick with it. Show us you're motivated. It is better to go deep on one thing than do 3 lessons in a million different languages. You know, stick with it. Show us you have the staying power, and that's the best way to show us that you are passionate about this. Anything to add on that?
No, I mean, I think that the most amazing thing about coding is you don't need tools or extreme strength or anything like that to start. And so the best thing ever is show us the passion by showing how much you've coded rather than telling us that you're passionate. Start coding. It's really important. So then aptitude is something that we assess kind of throughout the entire thing. And one thing I want to remind everyone is that aptitude is your potential to learn the code in the format and style we will be teaching you. Whether that's online or in person, we believe everyone can learn to code. And our admissions process really just exists to figure out, do you have the aptitude to be able to learn at the pace and the style we'll be teaching you? We do that through our admissions interview, we do that through our technical interview, and we do that through looking at what you've done before. So it's really important that you put effort in a technical interview and really pay attention to it.
Yeah, and I think there's one really important difference that I like to call out is that aptitude is not skill. Skill is what you can do with code today. Aptitude is, with education, what can you do with code tomorrow or after 15 weeks, right? And so that is why, you know, when Joe was describing the technical interview, he's like, there may be things you don't know. There may be questions you have to ask. That's because right now, you're not a perfect coder. If you were, you wouldn't be applying to a bootcamp, right? So what we're looking for is not that you are perfect today, but that you have the aptitude to be a great Flatiron student into the future and a great coder into the future. Is that, am I right?
Yeah, exactly. So for technical level in particular, for the online, we look for consistent progress. We want to make sure you're motivated to do this. We want to make sure that not only motivated, but you can speak confidently about your desire to learn to code and your career goals. As I said, we are a school for passionate people. What that means is you need to be able to just talk with confidence how much you want this. And since our curriculum is self-paced, we don't have a one-size-fits-all assessment because it's self-paced and the course can kind of mold around you. But the key is you want to show some consistent progress and a few lessons under your belt, right? For the in-person, we're looking for people who can demonstrate their ability to learn to code, explain their work, and can learn at the pace required for the in-person experience. So before applying, make sure you've completed at least 20 or 30 lessons. Bootcamp prep, Ruby, whatever track works for you is fine, but make sure you've done 20 or 30 lessons or so. Which actually gets to the question of when should you apply. And you should wait before applying until you know you want to do this for the right reasons. You don't just like looking at another thing that might be kind of cool. You know, I love programming. I want to be here with a bunch of other people who love programming, and I want to get a job as a software engineer. As Amanda mentioned, you know that the school's culture, or hopefully Flatiron School, is the right fit for you. Those values, you see those, and you're like, oh, yes, that is the kind of person I am. That's the kind of person I want to continue to be. And you're ready to set aside the time. Whether it's in person or online, you need to be able to set it aside. For in person, it's 15 weeks, 9 to 6. Online, it's a bit more flexible, but if you only prepared to set aside 5 hours a week, you're just not going to make much progress. You need to be able to set aside a pretty decent amount of time. I think we shoot for like 15, 20 hours minimum. Yeah. So that's when you should wait. That being said, you shouldn't wait until you've completed all of Bootcamp prep or all of the Ruby or anything like that. It's just a lot of material there, and you don't need to. You usually find most of our students understand if they like this or not after around 20 lessons, maybe 30. You also shouldn't wait until you have your finances 100% figured out. We have scholarships, and it's always a discussion you can have with your admissions counselor. And finally, you shouldn't wait until you know which school you're definitely interested in. Use the process to figure it out along the way. Amanda mentioned ask questions. Yes, please ask us questions. We do everything we can to try and convey who we are and what Flatiron is like. But in the end, go on an admissions interview, and you'll see Amanda or me or one of the other folks who work here, and we'd love to answer your questions. Use the process to figure out if you like this or not.
And I would say one last thing, on the note of like not needing to complete an entire course. Remember, the admissions process will take a little time, right? Yeah. Even if you move through it as fast as possible, it'll be about a week or so before we can get you a decision. So the in-person course might even be a little longer. So what we really love to see is you've done a little work, you know you want to do this, you apply, and then while the admissions process is happening, you keep working, right? You're going to keep doing lessons, you're going to keep learning things. You don't need to like stop everything and work through the admissions process. You will do both in tandem.
Exactly. So next steps and questions and answers, all that stuff. Before we do that, just a reminder, you get a $1,500 merit scholarship to our online web developer program, which is effectively $750 each month on your first 2 months tuition. If you're interested, as I said, scholarships are awarded to students with significant progress on Learn. Email us success@learn.co, and we'll work with that for the scholarship for those of you who've made a lot of progress on Learn. Other than that, though, I bet you have a ton of questions. Before we go into this, Amanda, any last steps you want to
just a couple quick logistical things for the in-person program in particular.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about applying to the in-person program, know that fall, autumn, sort of back to school season is an incredibly popular time to do this. So our October 9th class is already full. It's closed. You'll notice that is not on the website. The October 30th class is filling very quickly. We think we're probably going to move to waitlist this week. So yeah, things are hopping in October. So if you want to maximize your chances when you apply, please also consider applying for classes in November, December, or even January, because we are finding that fall, as usual, is just the most popular time of year to start one of these courses. So give us some flexibility when considering your application and apply to multiple start dates.
Yep.
But do we have some questions, Kira?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful.
So a broad question that was asked is, how do tech companies view an average top bootcamp graduate?
How do they view them? I mean, to be honest, they view them really well. They view them. We've had many students go in to a big interview day at some bank or whatever company, and it's them and maybe another alumni of Flatiron, and then someone from MIT, Harvard, and Carnegie Mellon, and they get the job. We have our students competing against other top OCS schools and general other schools, and winning and getting the job all the time. In general, our graduates get the job of junior web developer, which means you're a junior web developer. You may not be able to instantly scale a massive MongoDB system sharded across thousands of different machines, but that's what employers understand, and that's what they know they're getting with the junior. They know that you're bringing this outside life that they don't get from other students who just did CS in high school, CS in college, CS right after graduating. They don't have any other part of their life. For the lawyer who joins us and then joins a company working on legal software, that's huge that they're a lawyer beforehand, or the accountant, or the designer, or whatever. They get to enjoy all the benefits of your prior experiences as a member of their company and as a member of their team.
To bring it back to our story from before of the student who was a former farmer, I swear to God this is true. It sounds like a fairy tale, but it's true. He got a job as a web developer at a food company.
Yeah.
Swear to God. And I'm certain that that was part of why they wanted to hire him. They're like, oh my God, you understand our distribution system so much better than someone who's like 22 years old and coming out of MIT, right? Like you get it in a way that another person with a very different background might not. And so one of the things that our career coaches will do is help you figure out, given your particular background, how do you make that transition and how do you show an employer your sort of unique value, even if you're not coming out of MIT, when you're coming out of a bootcamp.
Exactly.
Great. So another question that we had is, if you get to the live coding phase of the interview process, what is the probability of getting admitted?
So the question, just to read the question, is that if you get to the live coding phase of the interview process, what is the probability of being admitted? I'm not sure. I'm actually going to hand that off to Amanda.
That's a really good question. So in terms of like students who make it to the tech interview, how many end up like sort of in the class? At that point, it's probably pretty close to like 30 or 40%.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little higher, depending on like how early you're applying to the course and this and that. It gets really tight right close to the close to the start date of the course. But yeah, if you've made it all the way to the live coding, you have already made it past many people, including those people I talked about before who write one-sentence applications, right? So you have done a ton of the lift to get to that point. But for a lot of students, that is where the actual decision hinges, right? Like if that doesn't go well, that will erase all the work that you've done. So my number one piece of advice that I give people is do not rush the technical interview. I talk to a lot of people who are so gung-ho about getting into the next start date, or I need to start now, or I need to be graduated by February, so I have to get into the next class. And I appreciate that. You know, people have different like pressures in their lives. But I see over and over again people who rush into the tech interview thinking they have a really strong understanding, and it ultimately ends up not going that well. So buy yourself a little extra time, even a week or two, to study and prepare and get ready will help you be one of the 40 or 50% who make it in, and not the 60 or so % who were writing and saying, sorry.
Okay, great. So another culture question is, I think of myself as an extremely passionate coder, and I love collaborating, but I'm not always explicit about it. I tend to be a little introverted. Are people like me part of your in-person classes?
Yes, the question was, if a student is incredibly passionate and loves collaborating, but is still, somewhat of an introvert, is there space for you at the in-person program? And the answer is yes, of course. We have, I think a lot of our instructors are a little bit introverted. I know I can be. We have plenty of students like that. And what we do is, I'm going to be honest, we try and get people a bit out of their shell. And I think there's a lot of power in learning by having to explain what you're doing to someone else. That's a really powerful experience. And so we don't want to lose that just because someone's been introverted. That being said, because of our small class sizes, we're able to really give people kind of personalized attention when needed and when kind of required. So we definitely have a bunch of students who do that. We have quiet spaces on campus for when we aren't doing pairing lessons and you want to just recharge alone. We have quiet spaces on campus for you to go to, work, recharge, get stuff done, then come back and be social and pairing.
Yeah.
So we try and make that balance.
Yeah, and something I'll add to that as someone who also identifies as an introvert is, especially in the early part of the in-person program, a lot of the socialization or the group work or whatever is sort of what I like to call sort of structured fun.
Yep.
We'll tell you who you need to be working with, we'll tell you what the goal is, we'll help you through the whatever activity it is that you're doing in a collaborative nature so we can ease you into the experience of getting to know your classmates. It isn't just like, go chat, right? Which, like, as an introvert, I'm like, no, please, oh God, don't make me do that. But it's like, we are going to do this thing at this time, and you're going to get to know your classmates in this way. And I find that for a lot of our students, especially our quieter students, that's actually very comforting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. So another question is, what happens if you don't pass the technical test? What is the next step?
Yeah, so the question was, what happens if you don't pass the technical test? What's the next step? So for some students, we send them on to a second round technical.
Yeah, you're really close. We'll send you to a second round.
Exactly, we're close to a second round. So that could happen. And then for others, you are allowed to reapply.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you are absolutely allowed to reapply. So if you, don't make it through the technical interview, we'll send you an email that basically says so. And then that email will contain some advice on how to reapply if you are really dedicated to the in-person program. Our advice on reapplying to the program is, first of all, give yourself a little time. I have seen students get, that, sorry, can't do it email, and then reapply 2 days later. And it's always a little hard from an admissions perspective. So I'm like, well, what's different? What has changed that would make me think that the outcome will now be different, right? So give yourself a little time, and when you reapply, make sure that new application is, materially different than the last one you submitted. Tell us what's new. Tell us what you've been studying, so that we as an admissions team can see, okay, we're likely to see a different outcome this time. So I think that's really important. The other thing that you can do is a lot of our students who don't make it into the in-person program write in and say, oh, can I be considered for the online program? And that is actually a pretty easy process for us to do for folks who, for whatever reason, didn't make the cut for in-person but still want to study with us. We can make that happen as well.
Exactly.
And so people are asking, just generally, what are some tools in addition to bootcamp prep that would be helpful for the admissions process?
So the question was, in addition to bootcamp prep, what other tools would be helpful for the admissions process? Technically, there's a few good books. If you're doing a JavaScript, there's a book called Eloquent JavaScript. It's a great book. It's free. Google it, and there's a whole website. I find that one really great. The truth is, everyone's different, and everyone finds different books and different resources perfect for them. Google around and find different things. I found Eloquent JavaScript to be one of the better ones. Anything on the cultural side that you say would be helpful?
Oh, I mean, come to campus if you can. Like, either come to campus or, chat with some alums, perhaps. A lot of our alums are really friendly. You can engage with them on LinkedIn, for instance. A lot of people don't realize you can do that. You can search for people have that in their profile. Reach out to them. Many of them will be very, very happy to answer your questions. We're always impressed when folks do that because, you know, this is a big decision, and kind of like, you know, college admissions, if you went through that process, you really want to make sure that this is the right step for you. So the more you can engage with the school, if you're fortunate enough to be here in New York, please come to campus. If not, you can reach out to alums and other people in the community. And that shows us that both that passion and also that great cultural fit of, you know, being scrappy and sort of working, finding colleagues to work through all of this with.
Definitely.
Okay, and then just getting back to the Flatiron application process. How long is kind of the time frame between the cultural interview and the technical portion, and how long do you have to complete it? Just a little expansion.
Sure. So the question was, how long does the admissions process take? So there's sort of a couple different answers to that. One, just to address it, the online admissions process usually moves pretty quickly. So if you're interested in the online program, from submission of the application, you should hear from us within a day or so to schedule your first round interview. And then from there, it's usually another maybe 2 or 3 business days before we can get you a decision. So for the online program, if you're responsive to us, we'll be responsive to you. We can usually get you a decision within a week or 2 weeks. For the in-person program, it takes a little bit longer. Most people average about 3 weeks in the admissions process, and the big bulk of that time is the time in between the cultural interview and the technical interview, because you want to really be ready for that technical interview. Some people schedule them back to back. You have a cultural interview and then a technical interview 3 days later, and they do great, but that's not the right pace for everyone. Most people take at least a week between the 2 interviews to really prepare and get ready. I've seen as long as 2 or 3 weeks or even a month, and that's particularly for people who have really just started and know they love this, but also know they need more time. So please give yourself that time. It never costs you in our process. There aren't like points deducted or anything for taking extra time. In fact, I think it's a good thing because it shows a little bit of self-awareness, a little bit of, you know, that passion, that scrappiness to say, I know I can do this, but I also know I can't rush it. Because if I rush it, I have to start all over again from scratch. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. And then, so we talked about having making significant process and learn. What is significant process?
Progress.
Progress,
Question is, what is significant progress and learn? Again, it depends on the program you're applying for. In the online program, you want to get through maybe about 20 or so lessons of bootcamp prep. And again, everybody's different, but 20 or so lessons will get you to a place where you've solved a couple of real labs. It's not just reading at that point. You've actually written some code in the program. You've OAuth to GitHub, which if you don't know what that means, it means connecting your Learn account to your GitHub account. You started playing around in that. Which is, you know, a hurdle that people need to overcome in order to, you know, be ready to do our program. So that's usually a pretty good point to say, all right, I'm good, I'm ready, I'm set up to do the online program, I'm ready to go. For the in-person program, I would say, you know, more is better, you know, 20 at a minimum, but certainly, you know, the more you can do in bootcamp prep or in our technical application track, the better positioned you're going to be.
Okay, and then what is the difference between the rigor of the online and in-person program?
So there's no difference in the rigor. It is equally difficult. It's the same curriculum through and through. The biggest difference is just the pace. So the in-person has a set pace every day. You have to make progress at the same pace as the rest of the 19 other students in your cohort. So that means that you just have to be able to keep up with that pace. Same difficulty, just faster pace. Online, same course, same material, but because it's online, it shapes to your style and your pace. So if you are struggling with a certain topic, you can take a week on it, right? If you find a topic really easy, you can blow through it and keep going on the next thing. And that's the biggest difference. It's no difference in difficulty of the material, just the pacing.
And one way you can think about it is, you know, the challenge of the rigor of the in-person program is the speed at which it moves. Mm-hmm. The challenge of the rigor in the the online program is motivating yourself through the hard stuff to not give up, right? So it's equally difficult, but difficult in different ways. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So more questions on the technical interview. Mm-hmm. What are the best ways to make sure you're ready? And are there any specific labs and learn that you should look at? So just
Yeah, so questions on a technical interview, any specific labs to look at, and any way to make sure you're ready. As far as labs, I'm pretty sure we have it in the email, but the lab that we discussed, it's like the most important, is the deli counter lab. You'll see it on your list. It's called deli counter. It's the lab we talk about the most. As far as how to know you're prepared, the best way I can think is record yourself. Find some lab, add a feature to it, and record yourself doing that. Talk out loud to your computer. There's something magical that happens when you actually vocalize what you're doing, and that's the best way to know you're prepared. If you felt comfortable being like, okay, I'm going to add this method to this object and do this if statement, then you're great. If you don't feel, when you do that and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing, maybe try one more time and try to get a bit more of the kinks out of your system.
Yeah, number one piece of advice I give people in the interview is talk your code out loud to a friend.
Yep.
That friend doesn't need to know a thing about what you're talking about, but you need to be able to talk your code out loud. Probably one of the most common place people trip up early in the tech interview and then need to recover from is not being able to say, you know, this is how I built this and this is how it works, but, you know, stumble over their own words and then have a hard time recovering from that. So practice talking your code out loud.
Yep.
Great.
I guess a follow-up to that, Joe, is why is it so important to be able to talk your code out loud?
Oh,
Why do you look for that?
The reason why is because on the backside, once you graduate, that's how you get a job. Being able to talk your code out loud is how you pass technical interviews. So you need to have that skill. It's really important. Any other major questions?
Specific to the application process.
Great.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. This was fun. As you can see, we put our email address on the slide. So if we didn't get to your question, or if, as usually happens, you think of your question 5 minutes from now, shoot us an email to success@learn.co. That comes right to my admissions team, and we'll get you an answer just as fast as we can. If you are fortunate enough to be here in New York, please do check out our events page. Come to a tour, come to an event here on campus. It's a great next step after attending this webinar. And even if not, do feel free to reach out to either us or other alums on LinkedIn to learn more about the Flatiron experience. Anything to add?
Good, nothing else. Good luck. Hopefully I see you all as on campus or online.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.